Biden promised not to raise taxes on anybody making less than $400,000 per year. Now, I've seen a lot of headlines out there. Some of them say one thing, some of them say something else, but these are pretty politically charged, so I'm gonna come to my own conclusions. I read Biden's 256-page budget proposal explanation document, and because I'm a huge spreadsheet nerd, I made a master Excel spreadsheet where I looked at a few different situations. Maybe you're making 50K, you're single and you have 2 kids, or maybe you're making 120K, you're married and you're about to build your first house. I looked at a lot of different situations to see who is actually paying more taxes and who is taking advantage of the tax credits. After reading through Biden's proposal explanation document, I found 5 big changes that are going to affect the most amount of people. Now, there are huge changes to people making more than $400,000 and people with net worths of over $100 million. But it's just such a small percentage of the population. I didn't want to cover it in this video. Let's be real, you and I, we're not making that much money yet. The first big change is to the standard deduction. The standard deduction is how much money you get to deduct from your income so that you pay less taxes every year. Most people do not itemize their deductions, so I'm not going to cover itemized deductions. If the standard deduction is lowered, then that is definitely a bad thing because you're not able to deduct as much of your income. In 2018, the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act increased the standard deduction a lot, amongst a few other things, and that will expire in the 2025 tax year. In Biden's proposal, he makes no mention of extending that benefit in terms of the standard deduction. So what it looks like right now is that that is going away next year. So right now, the standard deduction for a single filer is $14,600. And if you're married filing jointly, then it doubles. That's $29,200. You get to deduct from your income and pay less taxes. Now, if that goes down, the estimates that I've seen put the new standard deduction for single filers at $8,000 and for married would be $16,000. So before I show you the numbers and how much it's actually going to affect your bottom line, we got to then look at how the tax brackets changed. So let's go ahead and move on to that. The proposal would increase the top marginal tax rate to 39.6% from 37%. The top marginal tax rate would apply to taxable income over $450,000 for married individuals filing a joint return and $400,000 for unmarried individuals. The proposal would be effective for taxable years beginning after December 31st, 2023. This is a proposal, remember, so this may not get accepted, but if it is, whenever you're paying taxes in 2025 in April for this year, these rules are going to be in effect. So you saw in the document that he does not give any guidance on how the other tax brackets are going to shake out below the top tax bracket. There's 2 ways I think he can do this. He can either truncate that tax bracket and keep everything below it the same, or he can scale everything down, keep it all proportional so that the top tax bracket is $400,000. On the right is the one that I scrunched. I kept everything proportional. The bracket on the left, I just truncated that top bracket. Now, if he is scrunching, people making less than $400,000 are absolutely going to be getting taxed more. We already saw that the standard deduction is being reduced. If you scrunch the tax brackets, then you are going to be bumped up into a higher tax bracket at lower income levels. I'm leaning more towards the truncated version. The truncated version's tax brackets for a single filer would not be affected up to the 32% tax bracket. The 35% tax bracket would be truncated so that you would be jumped up into the 39.6% bracket once you make more than $400,000. Whereas before you had to be making $609,000 or more to be jumped up into that top tax bracket. Now let's look at married. This is where things get a little more interesting. If you are married and filing jointly, the lower tax brackets are essentially doubled, going from a single filer to a married filer. Now, in this case, I cannot double the higher tax brackets from the single filer because it would push me above the $450,000 income limit that he specified for the 39.6% bracket. The way I dealt with this on the truncated version is I doubled all the ones that I could, and then I scaled back the higher tax brackets. And then on the scrunched version, everything could be doubled because everything is just proportionally reduced. So that one looks a little bit cleaner for the married version, but I still think the truncated version is more likely. Now on the truncated married filing jointly tax bracket, the upper tax brackets are definitely scrunched a little bit. So you will be bumped into a higher bracket sooner. For married people filing jointly, if the household income is above $323,000, I'm projecting you'll be bumped up into a higher tax bracket. So I find it hard to believe that people married filing jointly will be unaffected under $400,000 just because everything is going to get scrunched at those upper levels. Okay, you've seen the brackets, you see what I'm working with. I'm going with the truncated version. Now I'm going to look at a few different situations to see who is going to be benefiting and who's going to be paying more taxes. First, I started with the medium single income, which is $50,000 per year. Then I chose an income on the lower side, which is $35,000 per year. And then I decided to go with a top 10% earner, which is $135,000 per year. Using the new standard deduction and the truncated tax brackets, somebody making $35,000 per year would pay $792 more in taxes, which would be an increase of about 35%. Before the changes to the tax bracket, you'd be paying about $2,216. After the changes, you're paying about $3,000. The median income, similar story. You're paying more, the exact same amount. You're paying $792 more per year, but this time it only represents about a 20% increase in taxes. Before you're paying about $4,000, now you're paying about $4,800. Next, if you're a top 10% earner, you're single, you're making $135,600 per year. Before the tax changes and before the changes to the standard deduction, you're paying about $22,082. Whereas after the changes, you're paying $23,666. This is about a $1,600 tax increase, and which represents only a 7% increase to your taxes. So in terms of percentage, the lower income earners are actually paying a greater percentage more on their taxes than the higher income earners. Just interesting observation. Next, for married individuals filing jointly, the median income is about $74,200. You're expected to pay $4,936 in taxes before. After the tax plan, you are going to be paying $6,500 in taxes. So that is a $1,584 increase, a 32% gain. The lower income household filing jointly is $50,000 per year. You're paying $2,000 before, now you're paying $3,600. That is a $1,500 difference for a 74% gain. So just like I predicted, you can see that if you're married filing jointly, these scrunched tax brackets have a much bigger impact, especially the fact that you have a lower standard deduction. Finally, if you're a top 10 income household, you're making $216,000 per year. You're expected to pay $31,200 before, after $34,118. That is a $2,900 difference, but only a 9% increase. If you've made it this far, you're probably feeling how I feel. We're gonna be paying more in taxes. We're screwed, right? Well, don't lose too much hope yet. There's a light at the end of the tunnel. Biden did include 3 huge tax credits in his proposal that affect people in different walks of life and different situations. Real quick, guys, thanks for watching. And if you've made it this far, please do me this one simple favor and hit the like button. In return, I'll do my best to create better and better content like this. Back to the video. So let's start with the first one, the child tax credit. Currently, this tax credit awards a maximum of $2,000 per qualifying child, but only $1,600 of it is refundable. What refundable means in this context is, let's say you owe $0 in taxes, you would still get a $1,600 credit. Now, you wouldn't get the full $2,000 credit though, because the full $2,000 is not refundable. The only way you would get the full $2,000 is if you owed at least $2,000 in taxes that year, and then they would take $2,000 off of your tax bill. Biden is actually pumping this tax credit up quite a bit. For children that are 5 years and younger, you're getting $3,600 fully refundable for qualifying children. And then for 7 years and older, up to 17, you get $3,000 fully refundable. So if you have 3 kids and you make 0 income, let's say the kids are 9 years old, you're getting the full $9,000, whereas before you would only be getting $4,800 because before only the $1,600 is refundable. I made this chart here just so at a glance you can see having different numbers of kids and how much more in credit you'll get compared to the previous tax plan. So if you have 2 kids, 6 or older, you're going to be getting at least $2,000 more in tax credit. If you have 3 kids, all under 6, you're getting at least $4,800 more in tax credit. If, this is the big if you're having kids that are under 17, then you are likely to benefit more from Biden's tax plan. Now, I'm not saying you should just go out and start having kids so you can make some money, of course, like kids are very expensive, but this is a little bit of a silver lining. If you have some kids, your taxes are not probably going to go up very much, if at all. But that's great for people who have kids or are planning to have kids, but that's not everybody. So let's move on to the next substantial tax credit that's going to affect a big group of people, the first-time home buyer and home seller tax credit. This credit gives first-time home buyers a $10,000 credit and first-time home sellers a $10,000 credit. So if you're lucky enough to buy your first home and sell your first home, that's $20,000 in credit. Now, Natalie and I, we already bought our first home, so we're going to miss out on the $10,000 home buyer tax credit. But if we are going to sell, maybe we can catch the second half. This credit does start to phase out for single income earners who are making over $100,000 per year and married filing jointly household income of over $200,000 per year. So I'm just going to focus on below those limits. So if you are married filing jointly and you're making the median household income, which is $74,202, then you are expected to pay $6,520, which is a $1,500 or $1,600 increase over the previous plan. If you're able to get the $20,000 tax credit, then that's going to make up for more than 10 years of that tax increase. So if you're going to be buying and selling your first house, you're really not going to have to pay more taxes, at least in the short term to medium term, in the medium term, because of those big tax credits. No, Lily, there is no tax credit for having a cat. I do not benefit from you. You're an expense. No biting in one. Jeez, go on. Okay, you can lay down there. All right. She's biting me. Okay. I should also note that both of these tax credits are fully refundable, so it doesn't matter what your income is at the time that you buy or sell the house, you're still gonna get the full $10,000 credit. So that's great for people who are able to buy and sell a home, but not everybody is in a position or even wanting to buy and sell their first home. So let's look at people who are in the low and moderate level income tax brackets. A tax credit that will benefit them is the earned income tax credit. Low and moderate income workers may be eligible for a refundable earned income tax credit. That means that you have to be showing an income within certain thresholds to get the credit. This table here shows where the credits phase in and where they phase out. The maximum credit under the current law is $632, whereas the ARP extended version, which is what Biden wants to reinstate, is $1,749. This is more than a $1,000 increase, which would more than make up for the increase in taxes that lower income earners would expect to pay from the reduced standard deduction and the scrunched tax brackets. So let's see who qualifies for this. Under the current law, this credit phases in as you make up to $8,260, and then from $8,260 to $10,330, it hits a plateau where you're making that maximum $632, and then it phases out as you get to $17,250. In Biden's version, the phase-in range goes to $11,430 when it hits its plateau, and then the top of the plateau is at $20,430, and you're making $1,749. It's important to remember at these income levels, you are going to be paying very little in taxes. So it makes a huge difference that these credits are fully refundable. Remember, you're going to be in the 10% tax bracket. You're going to be having the standard deduction. So even if you have zero tax bill at the end of the year, you're still going to get the full $1,750 credit. Now, unless we fit into one of these categories, low income, having kids, having a house, we are going to be paying taxes out our asses, which is why I take full advantage of my tax sheltered accounts. I'm sharing all about it right here, how I save thousands of dollars every year. Catch you on the flip side.